WRVA, the voice of Virginia.
Join the conversation. Find Rich Herrera on Facebook at Rich for America.
This is Richmond's Morning News with Rich Herrera on News Radio WRVA.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is News Radio WRVA. My name is Rich Herrera. Thanks for joining us. Again, wake up with Richmond's Morning News or play catch-up all day. I know we've gotten through the semi-quincentennial, but I'm still celebrating America's 250th birthday, and I look forward to 250 more years of great American history. Now, I will tell you this, one of the reasons why I was so excited to come here and join the WRVA family, as I said, I can't think of a better place to be for the 4th of July, 2026 than Virginia. We have so much history. And I know for a lot of folks that I talk to, they're like, yeah, I went to Appomattox Courthouse when I was in the 4th grade. I went to Yorktown when I was in the 6th grade. I went to D.C. on an overnight field trip when I was in the 7th grade, and some of you haven't gone back. For me, this is all magical because I didn't grow up in this part of the country. I grew up going to, San Francisco. I grew up going to the California missions and the mission system. And remember visiting those as a little kid. I didn't have the good fortune of living so close to all of these great either Civil War sites or Revolutionary War sites that we have here in Virginia. So one of the things I've been doing is I've been trying to take advantage. And I'm not good at this. I will tell you this. When I lived in San Francisco, I'm kind of ashamed to say I never went to Alcatraz. I lived in Arizona. I never went to the Grand Canyon. I live in Virginia. I am going to take advantage of as much history as I can. So while I went on vacation last week, I went to Appomattox Courthouse. I went to Yorktown, and I saw as much history as I could, and it really brought it all to life. Now, there's a group called the American Battlefield Trust. They actually had a grant that afforded an opportunity for kids here in Central Virginia to see some of these great places that I went and saw. Joining us right now is the president of the trust, David Duncan, our guest here on News Radio WRVA. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I will admit that I'm a big history nerd, and I subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and I watch some, and I learn quite a bit about American history through some of the outreach programs that you had. But history is different when you actually get to see and experience it with your own two eyes and actually touch the ground that some of the great Americans fought over. Tell me about the trust and why it's so important that we remember these people that did so many things to put us in the position to enjoy America in 2026.
Oh, well, Rich, that goes to the heart of what we do as a nonprofit organization. And it speaks to what I hear you talking about is the power of place. Books are wonderful. Documentaries help, no question, to teach history. But there is nothing like going and standing in a historic setting. And for the most part, we're focused on battlefields. But for anybody to go to a historic place and see it as it existed at the time that those great deeds were performed, there is a real power there. And I know it. I've done this for 26 years. I've talked to people all across the country, and they all say the same thing. You know, I read about this battle or that battle, Gettysburg or Vicksburg or Yorktown, in your case, or Appomattox, and that was great. But then I went there, and boy, it just came to life for me as it never did before. So that's what we do. We save the unprotected battlefield land so that it's not developed by data centers or warehouse distribution centers whenever we can stop that. And then we educate people about what happened at those places and why it's still important to us today.
I was in the Smithsonian yesterday and was standing there just in awe of Lincoln's hat from the Ford Theater. But earlier this week, I was standing there at Yorktown, and I went up to the little tower where you can push the button, and it kind of gives you the whole rundown of what happened when Cornwallis sent his second in command to surrender his sword to Washington, and Washington handed it off the duty to his adjutant Lincoln. And I saw the two quotes from General Washington and the dispatch from Cornwallis saying that the British had surrendered at Yorktown. And I thought that was nice, and I looked over the field and everything. But what struck me is is history coming alive. As I almost didn't walk down there. I almost didn't walk down the ramp to where there were some cannons. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go this way. It's shorter the car. My son goes, no, Dad, let's go look at these cannons.
Good for your son.
Oh my gosh. And I'm thankful he did, because as we walked through the cannons and I saw them stamped with surrender, and it commemorated, these are British cannons captured, and they were stamped with the Yorktown surrender. That brought everything to life. Like, wait a minute, this actually happened here. And this is a cannon that's 250 years old, and it shows where they surrendered. And this is actually something the British had and the Americans took.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, so you've just had that type of experience that we try to generate for really students of all ages, to go there and to create a spark, especially for the younger people, the students. We know just from survey after survey that there's been a serious decline in proficiency when it comes to history, civics, and social studies. And so to be able to bring, especially a young person, as I said, to a site like that where they can have that type of an experience, and maybe, just maybe, it lights that spark that creates a lifelong interest in history, in our country, in being better citizens. Boy, you can't just do much better than that.
I mean, it said surrender. I'm looking at the picture right now that I took, surrendered by the capitulation of Yorktown, October 19th, 1781. I'm like, whoa, that is from 1781. And then on some of the others, they had the marks of the British Army, of the Redcoats. I'm like, this is real history. And then I was enthralled as we took the Gold Trail. We drove through, and we saw where General Washington had his headquarters in his personal tent. We walked inside the tent, inside the park ranger station, and I'm like, this is as close as I'm going to get to General Washington, and it gave me goosebumps.
Well, it should. I'm very glad to hear that. You'd be surprised how many people still, to this day, really don't think that our country's history is all that important. They're willing to, as I say, kind of build modern intrusions on actual battlefield land. We had to save a pretty significant piece of property from becoming a housing development right there at Yorktown not too many years ago. But fortunately, I've got about 50,000 members all across the country who care passionately about our country's history, and not only the history, but preserving it for future generations so they can go there and have that experience.
I mean, I went to Appomattox Courthouse, stood there in the parlor, and then I was in the Smithsonian, and I actually saw the wickerback chair that Lee sat in, and the leather desk chair that Grant sat in, and then the one table that's in the Smithsonian. So I saw both of them within a few days of each other, and it was just remarkable. If people want to rediscover the history that they learned when they were little kids as adults, give me some ideas around Central Virginia that our listeners could go see this firsthand and experience American history and actually touch the grass, walk in the footsteps of wow, you name it, Daniel Morgan to George Washington to Thomas Jefferson.
Sure. Well, Virginia, particularly for the U.S. Civil War, is ground zero in the country. I think it was something like 32% of all of the battles fought during the Civil War were fought in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it's all of the battlefields around Richmond where we have been very, very active in preservation. Glendale, Gaines's Mill, Cold Harbor. Those are just literally a few minutes drive from downtown. And then you could go even further down the Virginia Peninsula. Yorktown was actually the site of both the Revolutionary War battle, for which it's most known, but also a Civil War battle. That's very unique in American history. Heading a little bit further north on I-95, you head into the Piedmont. You can go to Brandy Station and Cedar Mountain, where working with the previous administration there in Richmond, we're setting up a new state park, the Culpeper Battlefields State Park. You can head over to Fredericksburg, which also has a rich Revolutionary War history as well. 4 major battles of the Civil War were there. I was just at Manassas on Friday night debuting a new video that we produced that will now be shown in their visitor center. Of course, 2 major battles were fought there, and it just out into the Shenandoah Valley, and it just goes on and on and on. So we do have itineraries for trips on our website that people can, that's all free. Just download it and plan a trip. And if you do, please take a child or a grandchild so that they can experience that and hopefully catch that history bug and grow up to be history nerds like us.
Well, I do want to mention, though, that you did have the field trip grant program that benefited some kids here in our listening audience. Tell me why that's important to make sure that you get these schools, that these kids get the opportunity. Is it part of the normal curriculum that we do send kids to see this historic sites when they're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade?
Well, it should be, but I think our understanding is that ever since COVID and budget squeezes, field trips were the first thing to go. And we're hearing that from teachers, and we work very closely with teachers all across the country. So we heard that need, and we created something called the Field Trip Grant Program. And we actually did this many years ago, but have really accelerated it since COVID. It's important because those field trips, we think, create really lasting memories. They deepen understanding, and they inspire curiosities in ways that textbooks can't. And so we try to supplement those trips to help get students out on the ground. Over the past 15 years, we've helped send nearly 75,000 students and teachers to battlefields and other historic sites all across America. So I'm glad to hear there was someone in Richmond there who was able to take care of that.
Yeah.
During the last 3 school years, we've sent an average of 12,500 students to battlefields or other sites. And for, say, Rich, for your experience in California, well, there aren't too many battlefields in California, but if the teacher applies, and most of our grants are a maximum of $3,000, and it helps mostly with transportation. But if they want to take their group in California to the missions or to another historic site, one of the forts in California, they can apply for that as well. We prefer battlefields, but we understand that not every history classroom can get on a plane and go to Gettysburg. So we make it available all across the country.
Unless they want to go to Cacho Peak, which is the westernmost battle in the Civil War, which is now an ostrich farm. So there you go. If you want to find out more, it's battlefields.org is the organization. Now, we're going to have to stay friends, David, because I do need help. I'm trying to figure out how I can get someone to make me a replica of George Washington's uniform. So if you know anybody amongst these folks that you deal with, I want to have one to wear around and just remind people of the great history. So if I can get George Washington's jacket or one made for me like a Revolutionary War soldiers, I would be indebted. So let's stay in contact. Let's get people to go visit these amazing historical sites and see history and rekindle the love of America by actually stepping in the same footsteps as our Revolutionary War and Civil War heroes. It means the world to me, and I'm grateful for living in this part of the country.
Great. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, I know people, so I might be able to help you with the uniform.
I'm going to get this jacket one of these days. I promise you. All right, David. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Battlefields.org is the website. I'm going to find someone who can make me. Well, I need a double X jacket. That's why I just can't find one off the rack. All right. Let me remind everybody, today's program is brought to you by our friends at A+ Windows. A+ Windows. What do you know about putting a window in your house? What do you know about replacing a window? I tell the story all the time.